Welcome to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. We are the go-to resource for leaders looking to greatly improve their communication skills, whether it's one-on-one interactions, team settings, public speaking, or your digital communication. By improving these skills, leaders can create stronger connections and drive positive change within their organization. Each and every episode, we sit down with leaders from various fields, just like you're grabbing a cup of coffee with them. We dive into real, practical conversations. Our goal is to help you transform your communication skills so you can lead more effectively, build stronger relationships, and make a lasting impact. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's learn together.
Well, how can a simple text become the foundation for deeper trust and stronger relationships in our life and in our leadership? Whew, that is a tall order, and that's what we're talking about in this very last episode on the Texting with People series. How can one simple text message, how can the words that you put in a text message really bring that much connection, leadership, life, and build your relationship? Well, that's what we're talking about today. Over the past couple of weeks, we've talked about our emotional intelligence when we text. We've talked about crafting clear and concise messages. We've talked about being the annoying texter, about texting just enough, how not to text too much. We've talked about a ton. And today we are joined by the only guest who is a multiple guest. There is nobody else in the 100 and plus some interviews who've been asked back. Dennis Poulette is the only one. Dennis, thank you for joining us. Dennis is a brilliant leader. He's incredible with social media. He's incredible with, he's a world famous mathematician. No, maybe you are. I don't know. You've got more degrees than I'll ever be able to know. Dennis, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being back.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's funny. It's like, I wonder if people have thought, are we still friends? Like, I don't know what number it was the last time I was on, but I'm sure people are like, oh, that guy, he used to be on and I haven't seen him in a while. I'm sure you have loyal followers that are really thinking that much about me.
I bet. Are they like, is Jason and Dennis not speaking with each other? Are they speaking
Yes,
at each other?
exactly. Yep. No, I think what happened, I think, is that life just got busy, right? Like we just both kind of got doing things. So,
Yeah, and then we took a crazy direction with the podcast with going 2 episodes a week, and it's just been a blur. It's been a blur. I was telling somebody the other day, we're like scheduled through the end of June. I mean, it just doesn't stop the amount of leaders, authors, people who just
I
keep
know
emailing.
I'm always afraid to text you because I'm like, oh, is he in the middle of a podcast or something? I don't want to interrupt.
Well, that was the bummer the other day when you texted me, and I knew you were going to ask me about going to practice for the Blue Jays. I was like, I bet he's talking about the Blue Jays. And I looked at my calendar and I'm like, can I cancel these podcast interviews? And it was like 3 of them. I was like, oh,
That's
man.
funny. Yeah, I actually think that the spring training, I think they cut down on the number of practices before they start playing games because they just started practice on Tuesday, I think, full squad practice, and I think today they have a game.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
don't think they do like 2 weeks of practice anymore like they used to.
Mm-mm.
Because to me, I like going to the practices more than the games because it's free. But
It is amazing. And those of you who
I
are,
drove all the way down there and couldn't find parking. And so I
no.
just came back home. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I didn't want to get
oh,
towed.
man. And those of you listening outside of Florida, we're in the Tampa area, and one of the magical things about living in the Tampa area are their 5 spring training Major League Baseball locations from where we are about an hour 20. And then you could get to about 10 if you drive 2 to 3 hours.
Yep.
So it's pretty magical. Speaking
It's
of,
the greatest time of the year.
oh, it's the greatest. It is there's nothing better. Nothing better. And, it's pretty magical when you get a text from a friend who's like, what are you doing tomorrow? Do you want to go to spring training? Practice? Do you want to go to a game? Do you want to go to practice? And that's what a power of a text can do. And that's why I've loved the series. We've actually had great traction on the series. We've had a lot of people tune in because everyone's either been hurt by a text, they've been hurt by a lack of text. I think the kids today are calling this ghosting. Uh, or maybe they get annoyed because somebody's texting too much. They won't leave them alone. Or just what I explained. Like I knew you were texting me about something cool, and I was like, oh no, like I want to be a part of that. And so for you in your leadership, how has texting kind of become a tool for building trust, rather than quick communication? Because, I'm sure you don't text a million people, but, how do you use it to build trust?
Yeah, first off, I think if you're gonna communicate with me, please text. Like that's the way. Like texting has taken over any other form of
Yes.
communication, at least with me. I mean, and I think we probably have to like put the caveat, like it has to be like a text message. It doesn't have to necessarily be like an SMS. I mean, I know I'm getting like weird, but like you can message me on Facebook, you can DM me on Instagram, you can text me like with the actual text messaging. You can, what are the other ones? I guess Snapchat is a thing for the
Yep.
youngsters. I'm too old to do that pretty much. Yeah, Snapchat is like the only thing I do on Snapchat is communicate with my daughter. So, um, but yeah, I think it's, you can be strategic with your texts because it doesn't take a lot of time. It's a little bit easier to just kind of be like, "Hey, I'm thinking about you." Like I love sending texts that require no response. Um,
Oh,
like just the "Hey, I'm thinking of you" kind of text, because a lot of times people text, and I think, I was thinking about this before, that we have probably our top 5 to 7 people that we text all the time because we have to,
yep.
because dinner's ready, or what do you want me to pick up at the grocery store, or what time are you going to be home today, those kinds of things, right? Like your immediate family. It's almost like the circle idea, right? You've got your people that you text that are like, this is my day to day, I have to text because I know I'm talking to these people every day. And then there are other relationships where like I don't text all the time, but I can be strategic about connecting with them, even though it's not on a daily basis, kind of a thing. And there are those kinds of, like, there are people that come into certain circles where you're like, hey, like for example, I got a friend of mine who just had surgery like a couple of days ago, and so they're top of my mind. So I'm texting that person or her husband a lot, being like, "Hey, how's it going? What's
Yep.
happening?" Those kinds of things. So to me, those are strategic ways for me to be able to insert myself into that situation, even though they're far away, and I can still text them and be like, "Hey, I'm thinking about you, praying for you. How can I help?" Kind of a thing. So I think there are different ways to do it, but um, I think the ideal situation is figuring out a strategy for those people who aren't in your inner circle. So there's lots of ways to do that, though.
But I love that. I love that that's even been kind of in your thought process. How do I send texts that don't necessarily require something of them, don't require them to, answer anything, but just to let them know? Because I contend your friends who's going through the surgery, I contend there are a lot of people going, they don't need a text from me right now. And I think that's totally wrong. People who I've heard a ton over the years. They've lost somebody, or they're going through a sickness, or they've lost a job, or they're like, I don't want to bother them because they're dealing with so much stuff. I contend, I would say 90% plus are in the category of like, even if they don't respond, oh, it was really nice to get that text. It's just nice
Yeah, I
to
mean, I
know
think
somebody
that's,
was thinking about me.
to me, that's the genius of being able to text instead of call, right? You're not really taking up anybody's time. You text somebody and say,
Yep.
"Hey, I know you had surgery at 10 o'clock. You're probably never going to see this text, or you're not going to see it until tomorrow. Just want you to know I'm thinking about you." I don't need you to text me back and be like, "Oh, I feel so bad that it." Obviously, you're not texting me back. You're in a recovery room somewhere, right? Like, that's not. I'm not expecting that, but I am there with you by just simply putting a message out and saying, "Hey, you know that I love you and I'm thinking about you."
Yep.
That's kind of where I think we need to get to, and I think it's good for business as well, Not in this situation, obviously, that's a friend, but like I think it's good to be like, hey, I don't necessarily have to be selling you something all the time, but I do want to be, whenever I do have some kind of thing that I want to sell, or even with like potential clients or whatever, you're like, when I need to ask a favor of you, it's not like, oh, you haven't talked to me for 4 months
Yep.
and now you're asking something of me. Like, okay, I know maybe I didn't see you in those 4 months, but at least I've texted you a couple of times and you
Yep.
know that we're still friends and we're still kind of got that connection.
Yep. Oh, it's
It's
powerful.
kind of the way to speed up the like I know the whole big thing, speak with people, not at them. It's the same like even whenever you're trying to like um, transact, right? So you're not necessarily, a transaction doesn't take place just at the sale. It takes place all the way up to the time whenever you ask for the transaction. So
Wow.
you're kind of like, okay, hey, and I use that business kind of thinking, but it's the same with anything. Like, hey, I
Yep.
need help. I need help moving next week. If I need help moving next week and I haven't talked to you in 6 months, you're not coming to help me move unless you're like my long lost brother that,
Right.
or you have a heart of gold. But
Yeah.
if I have cultivated that relationship, then we're closer even without seeing each other. I think
Yep.
that's kind of key. You know, I have a lot of cousins and I'm like, I never talk to my cousins. I should. I need to be texting them more often and being like, hey, you know, how you doing? And one of the things that I love doing is like Facebook sends you that message of like these people's birthdays today. I don't usually, unless I don't know you that well or I don't have your phone number, I don't put happy birthday. I'll pick up my phone and text you
Yeah.
happy birthday. Thank you, Facebook, for the reminder, but I'm not going to be one of 187 people who wrote on your wall happy birthday. I'm going to be the person who texted your phone
Yep.
or in some other app that you're not getting 187 messages on, that because that makes me stand out, right? Like that makes it
Yeah.
feel at least that we're closer because I texted you and I didn't just put a Facebook. I don't know if that makes sense, but um,
I love that.
those are some of the strategies that I'm trying to use.
I love that, especially in the client relationship, because you're so right that it's not over just when they buy or as you build up to the purchase, like you're cultivating that relationship over a long period of time. And so it just reminded me when I was in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, sitting in a restaurant with James, and James was telling me about his love for X, whatever that was, and if I find an article or I see a YouTube video or something funny about that, and then I text him that, that's magical. Like it creates that. I know there's probably the scientific version of it, but that inside out Disney Pixar moment where it lodges something in his brain to go, oh, Jason cares.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I feel like we all long for closer connections, but I was just thinking about this the other day. The older that I get, the fewer friends you actually have, the more lonely you are.
Yep.
Because you get into your rut. Like you and I, we haven't really actually seen each other. You move to the same like you live 10 minutes from me, not even probably 5 minutes from me, and we haven't actually seen each other in a long time. So like
Yeah.
I'm not trying to like make you come over to
No,
my
I
house
get
or
it.
anything, but you know what I mean? It's like, but we don't have really close friendships or relationships most of the time the older you. So I think you have to be intentional about those things if
Yeah.
you want them to work. And if you ever need anything, then you probably should have been cultivating that relationship before
Yep.
you ask for something.
Yep.
It's like the whole give, 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 ask kind of a Gary Vaynerchuk social media strategy,
Yep.
but it's in relationships. And I think a text is more personal than a social media post, right? Like, obviously, like
Yeah.
we can know what's going on with our lives, but if you text me something about your family or whatever, then I can at least text back and be like, oh, that's so like when you text me photos of your son or whatever, I'm like, hey, that's really cool. Or you tell me you're going out to this play. Like there's a closer connection than just me finding out on Facebook.
Oh yeah, yeah. Everybody loves to be on the inside, right? They love that inside knowledge. So if you can, yeah, text people and be like, "Hey, I wanted you to know first." Oh, it
Yeah,
just
and
draws them in.
there's something to be said about an audio message too. Like
Yeah.
it's weird. I don't know if you have friends. I have some friends who like that's all they do is send
Yep.
audio messages.
Yep.
It's kind of sometimes annoying because I'm like, this is a voicemail. So it's the same as a phone call. I read the transcript, but I get it. Like I sometimes I get like, hey, I want to wish you a happy birthday, so I will send you a text message video of me saying happy birthday. Like
Yeah.
that's completely different than anything that anybody else is doing. And so it's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for taking the time to do that. And it's like it took me like 5 seconds more than it takes to text.
Yep. Yep. The
Like
most reaction I get
type
out
it
of
out.
people is when I send a video saying happy birthday. And I'll make it, like happy birthday. It's so great to, it's amazing. Like they're like, "Oh, that's so cool." If I just send a regular text with the confetti, that's nice, but it's fun. It's crazy how they'll like go overboard to thank me, for going
Oh,
the
and the
extra
next
step.
time they see you, if they didn't say anything, the next time they see you, they're like, "Oh, thank you so much for that video."
Yep.
Blah blah blah, and you're like, "You're welcome." Like it's not even like I'm not even trying to like work anything. Like it's
Yeah.
not even a strategy to like, oh, I'm gonna sell more if I do this. It's more of a like we're built for connection. We're
Yep.
built to connect with people. And a lot of times our cell phones have, and I'm guilty of this, my cell phone has made me not connect with people. So I have to strategically think, what can I do in order to use that tool in order to connect better with people so that whenever we are face to face in real life, we know what's happening
Yep.
and we feel closer.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, so I've talked about this like just a little bit on the podcast. It's a whole chapter in my book, Speak with People, Not at Them. Uh,
You're writing a book? No,
I
I'm
know.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's almost
No.
done, I hear.
Dennis is one of few friends who has been hearing about my book for multiple years.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Go ahead. One of the
Well, thank you.
chapters in your book.
So it's about our circles of influence, and we started the episode talking about baseball, and I think through a lot in baseball, and so if you don't like baseball, this analogy, I'll try to make it closest to you. But there's always the question of like who should I text? Who all should I text? Should I be someone who's texting people? Should I? My basic concept is we have all these circles of influence in our life. And this goes so perfectly with what you just talked about. The older we get, yes, like we have to fight for the connection. We have to fight for the influence, especially those of us who are entrepreneurs and small business owners, and we don't work in an office, and we don't, for me, I like working right here. I need to get myself out into a Panera more often. I need to get myself at more, networking meetings because, it's just powerful things happen when you connect with people. And like you said, we get into a rut and then we're like, oh, it's been 6 months since I've had lunch with Dennis. So these circles of influence. The first one I call the dugout. Okay. This is my closest circle. It is my closest allies. These are the people who, they know all the things first. So my wife, my kids, there's a handful of people. You would be in that for me, that first circle. Those are you've gotten quite a few texts or calls, me crying on the other end, going, "What is this? Why is this not working? What is wrong? How come no one likes me?" Um, so there's that circle. Well, that first circle, yeah, those are the people who are going to get the inside knowledge. You're gonna be in those constant text flows, all of those kind of things. For me, the second circle is kind of my coaches. These are the mentors, advisors. They may not be like my closest pals, buddies, best friends, but they're speaking into my life in a way that nobody else is. And so, they're right there. Kind of the next circle then is what I call my infielders. These are my closest friends, my trusted colleagues. These are the people who are like, I think of, a mutual friend, Christy. I mean, Christy has been a friend since I was her boss. She's still helping me now. She's doing some grammar edits on part of the book. This is like multiple years, that we've been friends. The next one is the outfield. And this is where it gets, a little further away. These are acquaintances. These are occasional collaborators. These are people who, like, every once in a while, I'm gonna go in. Then it gets pretty quick after there. Then it's like there's the good seats. These are the people who are sitting, kind of right behind home plate, who are, looking in pretty good, but they're supporters, they're stakeholders. They're the John Ruggles in my life. That guy likes every single post I put on Facebook. Does not matter. Means the world. Because, in a world where I'm trying to get a message out there, it's like people who engage in my content, it means everything. Then it's the upper deck people. They're occasional supporters, but they're just kind of observers in my life. I cannot speak today. These are the people who we had the 200th episode of the podcast. I emailed personally 82 people who fall into each of these categories, and 5 people replied back to the email. Now, maybe they didn't email back because it seemed like it was a mass email. I get that, but these are the people who are like and then the very far is the bleachers, right? These are the, maybe they're going to cheer for you if something happens, those kind of things. And we can keep going with it, all the way. But I think about those first couple runs of the circles. These are the people who I got to be sending those birthday messages. I've got to keep them top of mind. Even for me, things like, I've tried, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but you have helped me move. You are one of the reasons this podcast actually got off the ground. I've tried to remind you of that over the years, and so people that are like that, it is great to go back to them and be like, hey, do you remember when, it was 95 degrees outside and you were helping me move a couch inside of my house? Thank you. Like, I'll always be grateful. Those are, that kind of important thing. So, as you think, for me, as I think about texting around those circles, especially the first, 3 or 4, yes, I've got to text those people back. I got to keep them top of mind. Once you get a little further out, things change a little bit more. But what do you think about that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious, like, we can't be best friends with everybody. Like, nobody has time for that necessarily. But I do think that you could be strategic about texting the people who are on your list. Like, I don't know how many contacts you have in your phone. I have a lot in my phone, a lot of people that I've called like once or twice maybe, but I do still remember them and they remember me.
Yep.
And so I think like there are ways to be strategic because texting doesn't take a lot of time.
Right.
So I think obviously you've got the pillars, right? You've got the dugout people. You've got your wife. You're going to text her today probably 50 to 100 times.
Yep.
Your kids whenever they're, your kids, most of your kids are grown or at least old enough to not be dependent on you too much.
Yep.
So like I text my kids a lot every day, like just stupid things, but still, like sometimes it's important stuff, sometimes it's stupid things, sometimes it's a highlight that I saw on Insta. They probably get like sick of me sending them messy highlights from Instagram.
Yep.
That's soccer for those of you who like baseball. But like I send them those things, and then there's people who are my good friends that I know are gonna text. Like I get a text from our mutual friend James. Like I think I introduced you to James, right?
Yep.
Yeah. He texts me every day with a smiling face, a folded hands emoji, and a cup of coffee or something like that. And I think that's his way of saying, and I don't know for sure, I think that's James speak for I'm praying for you today.
I love
or
it.
I'm thinking about you, or do you want to get coffee? I don't know if I don't know if I'm supposed to respond, is what I'm saying. But I get the same text every day, like just like, hey, we're buds, like we're friends, But then there are some people that I'm just like, I don't even remember, like, I know the interactions we've had, or some people that I wish that I had a better relationship with, because at one point I was super close with them. And I'm like, I need to do a better job of being strategic about texting those people,
Yep.
because, like, my former students, I should be texting them at least once
Yeah.
a month just to check up on them.
Yeah.
My, people in my church, I should probably be texting some of those people just to check up on them. I feel like there's those kinds of things that we can do to bring people even closer. And it doesn't take that long. If I spent 10 minutes a day sending messages, my relationships would be richer.
Oh, 100%. But it would cut
Just
down
10
in,
minutes.
yeah, it would cut down in your real time though. Your reels time. So you'd have to
Yeah,
like,
I wouldn't be able to look at my, yeah. So what I did before, and what I've done in the past, I don't consistently stick to it. Is I have this kind of strategy of every day of the week, I go through either my phone contacts or my Facebook friends. And if it's the first day of the week, I'll go to all of the ones that are under A. And if I have a phone number, I will text them and just be like, hey, how's it going? It's Dennis. I always say my name because I don't know if they have my number
right.
saved.
That's great.
And sometimes it's just like, hey, it's Dennis. I was just thinking about you today. I hope you're having a great day. Boom, that's it. And they don't always have to respond, and they don't always respond. Um, but I think that that does, make things a little bit closer. So then on the second day, I go to the B's. On the third day, I go to the C's. And then
I
I just
love
go
that.
down. And so once a month, sometimes whenever I'm using this system, I don't use it all the time, but whenever I'm using the system, everybody gets an email.
I love how you do that though, because even that practice will help enrich your relationships. And even doing that, yeah, even those people who you may have not communicated with a while, even when they don't respond, I even think that helps you because in your business, as you're prospecting, people aren't going to respond. So you have to be conditioned to it. As much as I want to cry sometimes, why aren't these people responding more often? It just happens, and you have to be conditioned. It doesn't mean that you don't have to become the person who goes, then fine, I'm not going to text at all. No, be the person who, is that continual reminder. I love that exercise. That is a powerful approach to it.
Yep.
I think it's huge. Tell me about this. When we do send messages to people we haven't talked to in a while, do we think? I love the verbiage that you used. Do you think if you say something like, "Hey, it's Jason. Hope you're doing well. Would love to catch up soon." Does that sound kind of trite? Does it sound kind of trivial? Do you normally try to put something in there that's a reminder of your guys' relationship or?
Not usually, because most of mine aren't super, like, they're not so distant that they don't remember who I am.
Yeah.
Um, I think you can do, like, I think part of the would like to catch up sometimes. Sometimes that might put people off, but I don't necessarily do that either.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
I don't know how you want to wrap up, but I got people coming in.
Okay, let's just wrap up on what would be the best. Well, maybe I wrap it up there on the that section with what you kind of
Yeah.
talked about. Yeah.
All
Yeah, we
right.
could do.
So are you good?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the hurricane broke the window in
Yep.
here, so we're getting it fixed today. I didn't know
Ah.
what time though. So
So there you go. Okay.
yeah. Yep.
All right, well, let's just do an end section on you know, that
Yep.
section. So
Okay.
what I love about even some of these simple practices is it just gives us something, especially as leaders, especially as people who were trying to stay in connection, we're trying to keep these relationships going, and then even in our business as we're trying to reach out. I mean, even this exercise you kind of walked us through. What a great reminder to be able to help us. Dennis, what's one of the best ways we can find out more about you, find out more what you do, especially with your social media company, how you help businesses, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, you can probably find me on DennisPoulette.com or clickitmediainc.com.
I love it. We'll send everybody there. We'll put it, everybody that we need to, and really appreciate this time. Love this conversation. Every single time we get to talk is great.
Alrighty, thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. Thank you for leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and thank you for every like and every comment. Every single time you cut and copy a link and send it to a coworker or a friend, it absolutely means the world, and it helps each other transform our communication skills. Lastly, don't forget about a great resource that's available to you: our communication skills library. At the end of every episode, we ask each guest their favorite speaker, their favorite podcast, their favorite book, and we've compiled all of those resources together to give you an amazing library to continue your growth and development. Thank you again for being a listener and for being a part of the Speak with People community.